One step further. My story of math, the moon, and a lifelong mission by NASA computer Katherine Johnson with her daughters Jalet Heilig and Kathleen Moore. It's a truly inspiring story. I'm Katherine Johnson. Maybe you have heard of me. I helped send American astronauts into space and bring them safely home again. Katherine Johnson with her girls in 1949. Pictured from left to right in front row is Connie, Kathy and Joelet. We are Katherine's daughters and we are proud of our mom. Not only did she help send humans to the moon and back, she fought for equal rights for women and for African Americans here on earth. Our smart and courageous mom went one step further than many black women before her, and thanks to her leading the way, we went even further still. This is our story. As a child, I loved numbers and I loved to count. Every day, I counted the steps to school. My daughters, Joylet, Connie, and Kathy, loved to count too. 4 plates, 3 girls, 2 churches on a street, 1 little white dog. Math and music filled our home. And love and learning filled our lives. Every Sunday, we went to church, and every weekday, the girls went to school. They counted each step as they went. We all loved to learn. When Connie started school, I wanted to start school too. I followed her, and the teacher let me stay. There were things you could count: steps, plates, musical beats, and things you could count on. You could count on each other, family, and community. But you could also count on life being hard. In many places in United States, it was against the law for black people and white people to do things together. Black children couldn't go to school with white children. Whites only and colored only signs hung on bathrooms and swimming pools. In other words, white people told us, "You are second-class citizens. Stay away." But within our community, we were surrounded by our friends and family who protected us from the scary world outside. Colleges were kept separate too, and it was difficult for many black people to find the time or money to attend college at all. But I was lucky to be able to take that step. At college, I took a class about how the sun, moon, and stars move, and I earned a degree in maths. Even so, it was hard to find work. For many black people, it was hard to find a job other than as a laborer, janitor, servant, or a maid. But with my college degree, I was able to become a teacher. I said education was the key to equality. I believed in teaching and I believed in my students. But black teachers didn't earn a lot of money and it could be a dangerous job. Many white people didn't want black children to have an education, and black teachers and students were often threatened. So my husband and I took a big step. We moved our family to a new home with more opportunities for work. But segregation couldn't be outstepped. In fact, Joylet, Kathy, and Connie were forced to face it in ways they never had to before. Our new home was close to the ocean, but even the beaches were segregated. We were forced to go to the colored only beach. White people were mean to us because of the color of our skin. I cried when we first arrived. I missed our old home. The sand at the beach felt hot and gritty. The ocean was cold and scary. Soon things started looking up. I got a new job at the National Advisory Committee for Aeronautics, NACA. Women were hired as computers. Back then, computers were people, not machines. Engineers would ask important questions. Is the shape of this jet better? How can this plane fly farther? Then human computers would calculate the answers. On my first day, I picked out the perfect jacket and skirt, pearls, and red lipstick, and I reported to work. I was amazed to see dozens of my college educated African American women typing numbers into their calculating machines. The sound of their click, click, clicking was like music. I took my seat and got to work. Every morning, I carefully chose my clothes, put on my pearls and lipsticks, and carpooled to work with other computers. Our neighborhood was full of smart and stylish black women, mathematicians. They took such pride in their job and looked so perfectly every day we didn't know quite what they did, but we wanted to be like them. We felt we needed to be perfect. We needed to dress perfectly and act perfectly and do perfect work. Even though most of us had college degrees and had earned high grades, the truth was that white people thought we weren't as smart as they were, just because the color of our skin. I saw this kind of discrimination everywhere around me. Black people had to work twice as hard to be thought of as half as good as white people. It made me so mad. Arrived on time, arrived early, nice clothes, perfect hair, complete all work. Right. And just as there was segregation outside the workplace, black computers worked in an entirely separate area of the Naka campus. Even the bathrooms and cafeterias were separate. I chose to eat at my desk instead. I never missed a day of work. I loved the math, but even more, I loved asking questions. Most computers just calculated math problem, but I wanted to know how the math was being used. I wanted to know why. White men weren't used to a black woman questioning them. Some were angry, but I kept asking. Understanding why the numbers were needed helped me do my best work. One day, I went one step further. I asked, "Can I come to the meeting?" The answer was no. Women, and especially computers, weren't allowed at meetings. Is there a law against it? I asked. I got to go to meetings after that. Soon, Naka had a new name, NASA, and a new mission, sending humans into space. It was something the United States hadn't done before. Much of my new work was secret. I couldn't talk about it at home. But every night, would count stars with my daughters. I pointed out the North Star, the Big Dipper, Orion's Belt. There were even human-made objects moving across the night sky. When Mom spoke about the night sky, her smile was as bright as the sun. My favorite star was Betelgeuse, pronounced Betelgeuse. Mom said that math and NASA might be a good path for me, that I could follow in her footsteps. As my career grew, so did my daughters. At college, Kathy was helping her country take a step further towards equality. In Greensboro, North Carolina, she and other black students and adults, such as ministers, were peacefully protesting to change laws and to end racial segregation. We marched through the downtown two by two. We held sit-ins at whites only lunch counters. White people spit and threw water and popcorn on us. I prayed for Kathy's safety, but I was so proud of her. She was doing important work to help our country. I kept working to help our country too every day. I worked out math problem, I asked questions, I knew my equations, and questions would help our country take step after step as we tried to send a human into space. Soon, NASA chose John Glenn Jr. to be the first American who would not just fly into space but also circle Earth. It was a dangerous mission and there was a lot at stake. As they prepared to send Glenn into orbit, NASA brought in a new kind of computer, a machine. The machines were much faster at maths than humans, but were they as good as the math? At the math, would their calculations be correct? Many at NASA didn't trust the machine. Unlike human computers, the machine didn't ask questions. They didn't understand the math. They just calculated numbers. As blast off day neared, John Glenn made an urgent request. He wanted me to check the machine's math. He would not take off until I did. I worked for 2 full days to double check the machine's math. Every number counted. Finally, my calculations were done and Glenn stepped into spacecraft. He blasted off into space, circled 3 times around the planet, then splashed down safely back on Earth. Sending a human into orbit around Earth was a great accomplishment, but soon the US would take a step that no one had done before. They would put a human on the moon. It was one thing to reach the moon. NASA knew how to do that. They had already sent an uncrewed spacecraft there. It was another thing to send astronauts to moon and bring them back home safely. The answer was in the math that moved the sun, moon, and star. So I asked more questions. What direction is the world spinning? At what time must we launch? My questions helped the scientists figure out what calculations needed to be made. If the math was wrong, the spacecraft would miss moon. This time no one questioned my questions. I got to work. On July 16, 1969, the whole world counted down from 10 to 1 and watched as Neil Armstrong, Buzz Aldrin, and Mike Collins rocketed into space. I counted down too. 10, 9, 8, 7, 6, 5, 4, 3, 2, 1, blast off. Now everyone on the planet asked the same questions. Would they make it to the moon and would they make it back home? I was studying in the library for a few days later. When I saw Mom's picture in a newspaper, I shouted, "That's my mother!" The rest, as they say, is history. Joylet followed in her mother's footsteps and worked at NASA. She later completed her master's degree, taking her education and her career one step further than her mother. Kathy followed in her mother's footsteps by becoming a teacher. She received a master's degree and spent 33 years as a public school teacher and guidance counselor. Connie became a teacher as well. Like her mother, she felt that teaching children was a calling. Connie also drove a giant truck and did landscaping and wallpapering. She passed away in 2010. Katherine retired from NASA in 1986. When she was 97 years old, NASA named a building after her. When she was 100, NASA named an entire facility after her. Decades before, when she had joined NASA, no one could have imagined such a thing. But Katherine had gazed into space and studied its maths. She had asked questions and gone to work. So this is historical notes and context about the racial segregation, like the Jim Crow laws, then signs posted at the beach, whites only, colored only, and then there were some laws that barred African Americans from enrolling their children into high schools. Like there was segregation and there was so much inequality and so much injustice for blacks everywhere. But it's her inspiring story that she still fought back and achieved whatever she wanted. So this is a perfect book to read. And that's the end of today's video.